I've been away for a week, so let's talk about why the M2 Air had to go, the leaked redesign for Apple's most popular, i.e. cheapest iPad, and Mark Gurman's thoughts on the HomePod and Mini in 2023. And of course, your iCaveAnswers answered. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell. But first, the elephant in the room, why the MacBook Air M2 had to go. On holiday with me last week. Honestly, did you think I meant I'd sent it back to Apple? Shame on you. So last week we were off as a family to Jersey, the old one in the English Channel near France, not New Jersey near New York. And of course I was in charge of all the gadgets and charging equipment, which basically means my wife deals with all of the actually important stuff. Now I'm going to share a couple of travelling with tech tips later on, but first, the MacBook Air. It's literally the perfect MacBook. No, the perfect laptop. Especially if you travel, and honestly if you don't, get a Mac Mini like I did in the pandemic and you'll be happy, because that's excellent as well. The MacBook Air M2 is light, like lighter than the last MacBook Air by a decent and, at least for me, noticeable margin. It's really slim, like really slim, and actually it's almost too light to open one-handed. A slight gripe that I have is trying to lift the lid one-handed, sometimes lifts the whole thing off the desk because the magnetic clasp and the stiffness of the hinge. It's just something to be aware of, and bear in mind that this hinge might well loosen a little bit up over time too, but yeah, it's a really stiff hinge. I also kind of have the Apple TV remote issue from the last generation, where I try and open the back of it quite often because for some reason I seem to think that the logo should be pointing towards me now, which I've never thought with a MacBook before. Very strange. The M2 MacBook Air also has absolutely enough power for 95% of people's use cases. Editing all but the most demanding of video, it's absolutely fine. It's noticeably smoother in Final Cut timelines than the mains powered and substantially fan-cooled M1 Mac Mini, which I've been using for over 18 months daily on this channel. Now, it's not a leap like Intel to M1, but anyone that expects that that would have happened basically doesn't understand how chips work. This is about 20% faster, and that is what you would see year on year with the iPhone chips, and it makes a lot of sense. That is the kind of improvement we should be looking for each year. The M1 was an enormous leap forward, and Apple is far clear of any competitor in this weight class, and here's the kicker. I didn't have to charge it all week. Now, I did take the charger with me, the MagSafe cable, never plugged it in. We did do some Photoshop work for a project my wife's working on. I did some general web browsing, and when the hotel's TV system went down, we were able to grab a VPN back to the UK and stream the movie that we would have been watching anyway onto the TV with the MacBook hooked up to the TV over USB-C to HDMI. Now, I didn't hammer it on the battery, but we got back to the UK after a week away with around 30% battery still there. Now, I had the charger with me, and because I went for the dual port 35 watt option, that actually became the main charger for all of our family's array of iPads, iPhones and the like. But yeah, I'm pretty much in love with this MacBook Air M2. It's not leaving me, but it had to go with me. So I didn't clickbait you really. Now, quick tips on travelling with tech before we move on. Get a cable organiser bag. I'll grab mine. Pretty sure I've shown this on the channel before, but it's a little zip bag, and it's got space in the top for all of your cabling, and down at the bottom here I've got my little Joby tripod with me in case I was going to make anything for the channel. Didn't get around to it. The internet was pretty appalling over there, so it was really hard to get anything uploaded, which is why we didn't bother in the end. It's so helpful to have a bag like this rather than rummaging around in your backpack for that one cable you need. Now, we were traveling with two iPads, the MacBook, two iPhones, both iPhone 12 generation, AirPods and a couple of sets of the Edifier headphones that I've been reviewing, a couple of mini USB powered medical devices for my son's diabetes, and a couple of other things, and that's a lot of cables that you need. Try to take wall warts that have multiple ports. Hotel rooms are notoriously short of sockets in many cases, so you might only have one that's accessible if you still want the TV to be left plugged in. If you don't have one, bring a multi-way power strip. If you're traveling by air with multiple iPads or laptops in your group, put them all in one of your carry-on bags, as they'll need to come out for the X-ray at security. Also, empty any smaller tech, phones, wallets, belts that you have into one of your bags while you go through the security line, because then they can all go through the X-rays in one go, rather than you setting off the scanners and having to have the more exciting pat down. If you want any more tips on traveling with tech, let me know and we can do a whole video on this topic, because we kind of became experts this week. Next up, our next topic for today is the iPad 10th generation, and conveniently Evan Rogers asks, iCave Dave, can you discuss the iPad 10 leaks and rumours? What do you think will be the cost for the base 64GB and 256GB Wi-Fi models? Now this is a really weird rumour, so if you've seen these images, it does seem to be legit. However, they look really weird. So here's what we're hearing. The 10th generation iPad is likely to keep the same front panel, or at least almost the same, keeping the Touch ID home button and the top and bottom bezels, but with the slimmer side bezels, and then when you move away from the face, it's basically going to look like it's cosplaying as an iPad Air or iPad Pro, getting the flat sides and back that we've seen in recent releases. So what or why is this? Well, the biggest reason for the redesign, if it is indeed true, and remember last year we were all expecting the base iPad to become the 3rd generation iPad Air design, then it's almost certainly because Apple has finally realised that the 1st generation Apple Pencil's charging method is only exceeded in stupidity by the Magic Mouse. I mean, also they probably don't want to keep making that version as well as the 2nd generation as well, but perhaps there's yet another version coming to the Apple Pencil soon and they want to kind of pare down the numbers that they're going to be doing. Maybe we'll get the version we've been predicting with the camera in the tip so that you can sample colour from the real world to paint onto the iPad. Who knows? Other parts of the rumours seem less likely, such as the idea that it might have quad speakers. I mean, what? Just because there's 4 sets of speaker holes doesn't mean quad speakers. The iPad Air and Mini both have 4 sets of holes, but still only have a pair of speakers, just with more places for the sound to come out in case you cover one of those sets of holes with your hands. Stereo speakers though, I could get behind. Even that would be a really big improvement. I also see keeping them as non-laminated displays, and I know this will have people up in arms when it happens, but even if you don't like the way it looks, it is very practical for Apple's cheapest iPad that will end up in many classrooms supplied by the schools, as well as being the go-to iPad for the majority of kids. A cracked digitizer that is separate from the LCD is way cheaper to replace than the laminated display, where the LCD would have to be replaced if it's bonded to that digitizer glass. It's far more economical for schools and the like, with fleets of devices which may not be the most carefully handled. Pricing wise, I think that Apple might go up a little bit, but in the past we've heard they wanted to hit $300 instead of $329. I think maximum maybe $350 with the new design language. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference in terms of the sales, but it is going to mean that a single Apple Pencil can kind of cover the whole line, and they will probably discontinue the old one pretty soon. And next up, the HomePod. Mark Gurman is predicting not only an update, albeit not a huge one, for the HomePod Mini in 2023, but the return of the HomePod Nothing with a new S8 processor and multi-touch top display. Now, I'd be delighted if these updates added either mesh networking, as I've discussed in the past, using those HomePods as access points, boosting your Wi-Fi around the home, as well as being ready to play music and acting as a HomeKit hub. It just makes sense that these devices being spread around different rooms in the home would make a great system for covering the whole home in Wi-Fi. Mark's also spoken again of future products that include a combination of HomePod with a camera and a display for FaceTime calls, which honestly sounds to me like an iPad, but with nicer speakers, and also an iPad on a weird robot arm with HomePod level speakers. That sounds kind of terrifying if it's going to like chase you around the room, but surely that's what Center Stage was for, so that they wouldn't have to build a terrifying robot arm. Let me know in the comments if you would like a Apple powered robot arm to chase you around your kitchen holding an iPad. Now into some more of your questions. Armin Dressler asks, iCaveAnswers, rumours say that A16 is only a minor upgrade from A15. If M3 is based on A16, a node shrink from 5 to 3 nanometers would make it possible to put more cores into each die and or run at higher clock speeds, but it would be the 3rd CPU with basically the same performance cores. Do you think that M3 will have some additional tricks up its sleeve? E.g. again, either faster efficiency, GPU, neural engine or media cores, or additional display drivers and Thunderbolt 4 support for the base M3, etc. There's a lot to unpack in that, and I do think we will be getting the M3 based on the A16 cores. The reason that people are saying that the A16 is not going to be a huge jump over the A15 is basically because it is on the same node, which means that there isn't any kind of gains to be had from the manufacturing process, and all of the gains will come from redesigns. However, if you then transition those cores to a 3 nanometer process, you are going to get the efficiency gains and the performance gains and the lower heat and all of the rest of the benefits that you get from that, so you don't even need to squeeze more cores onto those chips. although it will open up the possibilities to do that for things like the Pro and the Max chips. I would say that the base M3 is probably going to stick with the 4 and 4 balance of cores for now. It's been shown already that if you go to low power mode on your Mac, for the vast majority of tasks in low power mode, you don't need the performance cores at all. You can run your whole system on the efficiency cores and it's absolutely fine. So I think that's probably the way that Apple will go, with M3 being all about that efficiency, keeping the efficiency cores and keeping a decent number of performance cores, but not overdoing it. And I don't think they'd even need to put that much new IP in there, because all of those cores are going to get the benefit of going to the 3nm process. You don't need to worry necessarily about those other cores in particular. But also, we've actually seen nothing about what the performance of A16 is going to be like, and we've only got a couple of months to wait until we actually know that for real. Andrew Giddings asks, enjoy your vacation, we're about to head out on one ourselves. I may have missed you talking about this, but there has been a lot of shade thrown at the M2 MacBook Air for being aimed at consumers and not performing sustained pro level tasks, as well as the MacBook Pro models. Do you think an M2 MacBook Air is a worthy upgrade for the M1 MacBook Air? Now, I'll be honest, I don't know why people are throwing shade for the consumer laptop being aimed at consumers, because that's literally what it's for. But sustained workloads are not what this is for. It can do them. It will throttle down if you're doing heavy duty, and I mean heavy duty video editing, but it's not going to throttle during the editing process. It's going to throttle when you actually get to doing your export, which is only going to take you a couple of minutes anyway, and the majority of that is handled by the media cores and not actually by your GPU and CPU anyway, in the vast majority of cases. So it's really a non-issue. These are not designed for people that are going to be doing day in, day out video editing, heavy duty, compiling, all that kind of stuff. These are designed for normal people who are going to do office type stuff the vast majority of the time. They're going to do web browsing, they're going to live in Google Docs, they're going to live in Twitter, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be absolutely no problems for any of them, and even if they want to do some heavier duty tasks, it's going to handle it absolutely fine. It might just take an extra minute on your export, and if that's a problem for you, spend your extra money on a MacBook Pro. But I think, for, as I said earlier in this video, 95% of people, and I mean 95% of all people, maybe not 95% of the people that watch this channel, because you guys are all about the details and the tech, it's going to be the perfect laptop for you. Now, thank you so much for your patience last week when we were away on holiday. We had a lovely time as a family. We were on the beach, we were swimming every day. We just had a really cool, relaxing time. The kids did a whole bunch of dancing in the club. And I don't mean we took them to a nightclub, I mean like the kind of kids club thing. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. So thank you all for your patience. We will be back for the next week as usual. We've got a whole bunch of reviews coming up. And if the news stays as quiet as it is right now, that's going to really help out. So I can use your help too. If you've got any questions, hashtag iCaveAnswers down in the comments, and I would love to answer them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, Patreons. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell.